There were some moments that would never be repeated again.
I'm excited about today because when I originally thought about this idea of a podcast, and then we talked about it. I mean, we were always kind of talking about a podcast, and then we kind of amped it forward in about October. My thought was like, oh man, it'd be cool to have Bible talk with coffee in the morning, and this is the first time
you're doing coffee in the morning.
It's morning.
It's still morning. That's right.
Like, for everybody who doesn't always get to see this, we're on episode. Yeah, we're on an episode. I'm just coming back from Mexico, so
yes,
like my
true.
brain is like,
true.
wait, where am I?
And how many ounces of lotion did you use?
Suntan lotion?
You told me on
it's a lot.
Gallons.
Like 2 big bottles of SPF 50.
Hey, you got to do it, man.
And specialty face.
Yep.
There was maybe that much left in the specialty face. And
you got to have that.
I people are like, you didn't come back tan. I was like, yep.
Yeah.
But my freckles are bigger, and that's what's nice.
Yeah, that's good.
Freckles are in bloom.
That's pretty good.
But anyway, circling all the way back to we film this in the afternoon. That's something that we do.
Yep.
And so the coffee part, I can't have coffee in the afternoon. So today I'm excited because like I love sitting and drinking coffee and listening to stories.
Here we go.
PD, what are we talking about today?
We are going to dig a little deeper into the Jacob-Esau reconciliation story.
Okay. I love that name, by the way. Esau.
It's
another.
Well, if you would be considered Esau.
Me?
Yeah.
Why would I be considered
because
Esau?
You're big and hairy.
That's not where it saw that going. Okay.
And that was Esau's. That was his. I think he was a lot more hairy than you, because if Jacob had to wear goat's skin in order to fake out his dad when his dad was blind and he reached out, and I don't think you're covered with a goat skin.
No.
But you're so actually.
I mean, on vacation, I saw a lot of very hairy gentlemen.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough to take that shirt off. But if you would take like our Jacob,
yep,
and you, that would be kind of the body types.
Oh,
like you're much bigger and taller than Jacob here. Not that Jacob's not small, but
right.
But anyway, that would be kind of the juxtaposition. So when Jacob is fearing for his life, he's running not from a little guy, he's running from a big guy.
Big guy.
Who is a very good hunter and knows how to kill things. So we're going to dive into that. But we usually never dive. That's one of the fun things I love about this series, is that we're going into parts of the story that we never talk about. We always, with the Jacob story, we always do there's the fake out. Jacob fakes his dad into believing that he is the oldest, that he is Esau. And then Isaac then gives Jacob the blessing instead of giving it to Esau. Now, Rebekah sets all this up. Rebekah is the mom of both Esau and Jacob. Esau and Jacob are twins. Esau comes out first, but Rebekah picks Jacob for the blessing, and I'm going to read the blessing.
There's so much truth in this, because I hear the dad doesn't know the age of his own kids, but the mom's like, I do. That's real.
Back then, they had lots of, and he's blind, and we should do a whole thing on Isaac at one point in time, because Isaac is the passive. Things happen to Isaac.
Okay.
He doesn't seem to have his own agency in any of his stories. He's being made fun of by Ishmael. That's why Ishmael gets kicked out of the camp. He goes to be sacrificed on the mountain. He carries his own wood for the burning, for the fire, for the sacrifice. He doesn't have any agency there. He doesn't even go out and look for his own spouse. He doesn't have agency there. He gets tricked into blessing the wrong son. He seems like the guy that just is there, kind of the bridge between Abraham and then Jacob, because lots of stuff happens. Abraham is a very strong leader. Jacob then becomes this father, Israel, the father of all of these tribes.
In the hierarchy of age, because I have a question, not to interrupt, because you're talking about, and I'm just curious how it sits. And we were talking about who came first, who's the oldest. So the oldest technically is in this hierarchy of kids.
Esau.
Is Esau.
Yep.
The middle child is
Jacob. Well, Jacob's the young one.
And
yep.
then so Ishmael, right?
No, Ishmael and Isaac are brothers.
Yep.
And Ishmael's the oldest.
Okay.
Then Isaac's the youngest. 2 brothers. And then Isaac has 2 sons.
Okay.
So Ishmael would be Esau and Jacob's uncle.
Okay. Now I'm following. I'm following.
Yeah, Ishmael would be Esau and Jacob's uncle, and Isaac is their dad.
So we talked about family tree last time and how it runs horizontally.
So the whole idea that you can call somebody a brother or a sister if they're in the same patriarchal system.
Got it.
But it might be your cousin, and it might be your cousin 3 times removed. I mean, stuff like that. You would claim lineage through. This whole family would claim lineage to Abraham.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons why even today we have these Christian songs that Father Abraham had many sons, and many sons had Father Abraham, and I am one of them, and so are you.
Was that part of your musical? Or?
No, I didn't write that song. And I sang it beautifully, by the way.
It was super good. We got to get you up there.
I got to get up there a little more often.
We got to get that Taylor of yours fixed up.
Got to get going.
But anyway, so the family tree.
Back on track.
I'm learning. I'm always learning. I'm not and I love learning about this stuff.
So we're gonna take a bit of the story that we never really go into. We go into a lot of the wrestling that Jacob has. To go back even further, we go into the tricking that Jacob does, and with the help of his mom. And then Jacob runs. So we'll start with that story. So Jacob and Esau. Esau's born first. Jacob is their twins, and it said that Jacob is grabbing at the heel of Esau as he's being born. So there's this wrestling in the womb even. There's this fighting in the womb that Rebecca feels. And so these 2 brothers, even before they're born, are destined to have some kind of a difficult relationship. And Esau is the more athletic. That's what the common theme is. I think Jacob is kind of seen as the homeboy, the mama's boy. It doesn't necessarily mean that Jacob isn't masculine at all, but he stays a little bit within the tents. He's within the group. Esau is more of a loner, which if you're going to try to build a family and a leader for a whole group of people, the guy in this case, the male, the guy who knows how to live in community is probably a better choice than the guy that's out by himself hunting all the time and doesn't really relate to family and community. So Jacob knows everybody. He's hanging out with the community. He's not a solo guy. And what God is looking for in these stories, especially when this whole project is continuing to form within this family, are people who will bring a group along, not just be the solo. So Abraham is a group guy. Isaac, everything happens to him in a group. He's a group guy. Jacob ends up being a group guy. Esau is more of a loner. So you can see a little bit why maybe Rebecca would go, okay, I think I love both my boys, but the person I think that's going to lead this family into the future is a guy that acts a lot more like Jacob than Esau does. So Esau is out hunting comes back, is starving, hungry, and asks Jacob for a bowl of food. And Jacob says, because Jacob is kind of a sneaky guy, politics, he knows how to do all that stuff. He says, well, I'll give you some food, but give me your birthright. And Esau's like, I don't care. I'm hungry. I don't care about my birthright. What is that? I love that story. Esau's just like, I don't care. I'm hungry. Who cares about a birthright? Well, if you're going to lead a group of people, you should probably care about your birthright. You should put your birthright in front of everything, which means you put your family first. Esau's not doing that. So Jacob goes, okay, I'll take the family now, and gives him the food. Then there has to be this blessing that gets passed. There's a blessing that comes from Isaac at the right time. He's on his deathbed. He goes to who he thinks is Esau. Or Jacob comes to him dressed in goat skins, and Isaac reaches out to touch who he thinks is Esau, and touches all this hair, and realizes, that even though he doesn't sound like Esau, he's touching him, and he goes, okay, this must be Esau. This must be Esau. And this is the blessing that I'll read to you from Trust the Story.
I see it.
You're invited to Trust the Story. I don't know which one it is.
That camera right there.
That right there. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Camera one.
And this is, after all the trickery, Isaac gives this blessing. And it's a beautiful blessing to who he thinks is Esau, but he gives it to Jacob. And Esau's already given up his birthright. So then his father Isaac said to Jacob, come near and kiss me, my son. So he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his garments, because Esau usually he's out, didn't bathe very often. He even smells like a goat. So, okay.
Tracks.
Doesn't sound like him, but he smells like him, and he feels like him. It must be him. And smell of his garments, and blessed him. And this is the blessing. The smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
May God give you of the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth and plenty of grain and wine. Let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers. May your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you. Blessing passed down from generation to generation. Jacob now has this blessing. Well, and everybody knows it. This is not a secret blessing. This is like I don't know if we could really put it in this kind of setting, but if you ever seen those medieval films where the king is on the deathbed and he brings in his son and says, this is the new king, and everybody are standing around, all of his visors, and they all go, okay, and they all hail to the new king. So this is not like a private moment. This is a tribal moment that's happening. And Esau's not there for it, as usual. Esau's out. He's gone. And so Esau finds out about this, because everybody's like, oh, Jacob's the new guy. Esau comes back, and he says, bless me also, Father. And Isaac said, your brother came deceitfully, and he has taken away your blessing. Esau said, is he not rightly named Jacob? Jacob's name means deceiver. So for all those who named Jacob, sorry. It's a great name. And he redeems the name, by the way. He redeems his name. For he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, which Esau didn't really care about, and take away my blessing. Esau said, okay, yeah. And then he said, have you not reserved a blessing for me? So Isaac answered, Esau, I have already made him your Lord. I have given Jacob all of his brothers as servants, and with grain and wine I have sustained him. What then can I do for you, my son? Esau said to his father, have you only one blessing, father? Bless me also, father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. So what happened is that in the act of blessing Jacob, all of Isaac's possessions now belong to Jacob. All of it. Jacob becomes the wealth, the inheritance comes to him, and none of the other brothers get anything. That's just kind of the way it worked. But Esau weeps, and so Isaac gives him a blessing. And you could see how different this blessing is than Jacob got. Jacob got, may God give you the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth and plenty of grain and wine. This is what Isaac gives to Esau. See, away from the fatness of the earth shall be your home. He's not getting any fatness of the earth. And away from the dew of heaven on high. He's not getting any dew from heaven. Your sword, by your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother, but when you break loose, you shall break his yoke from your neck. So you talked about yoke?
Yep.
So these brothers are splitting. Esau cannot stand the fact that Jacob now has all the inheritance, and the only way Esau is going to make it in the world is through violence, through his sword. He's going to have to conquer on his own. And when that begins to happen, boom, they're no longer yoked together as brothers. So there's a split that Isaac predicts or even blesses Esau with. Well, Esau's, of course, mad, and he's going to start living by the sword. And the first thing he does is he goes to find Jacob. And he's going to kill him. And Jacob hears about this, and Jacob does with the only thing he can do. There's no chance that he's going to win in any kind of combat with his big brother. It's, he runs. He runs and he runs and he runs. And he runs to his family. And there's a bunch of weird stuff that happens in this whole thing with Jacob. Jacob runs to his uncle. I don't know if I want to make sure I get all this right. And he meets this amazing girl, this amazing woman, Rachel. It's just like beautiful. And he wants her hand in marriage. And Rachel's dad says, give me 7 years of labor and you can have her. So he does. And then on the wedding night, he goes into the wedding tent for the wedding consummation. But instead of putting Rachel in there, they put the other sister, Leah, in there. So he ends up having relations with the wrong sister on purpose. They trick him. See, you know what I mean?
To be fair, comeuppance. Let's just.
Oh yeah. He gets his.
Yeah,
he gets his.
You get the energy you put out.
Yep, Yep. And this guy Laban is just as sneaky as Jacob is.
This is like the Monty Python part of the Bible.
This is the Jerry Springer part of the Bible.
I'm already I can see the skit where the dad's on the bed and he reaches out for his son and he actually pets a goat and blesses a goat. Start my son.
This is so human.
It is.
We read the Bible as this kind of like something that's so distant and far from us. But these stories are like, this is people doing people stuff.
I've seen this at a bar on a Friday night while I'm playing music.
Sure.
Like this is this. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
So then, of course, Jacob wakes up the next day or whatever and realizes he's married the wrong sister. And then the sister's name is Leah. So he goes and goes back and goes, hey, what happened? And the father goes, well, if you give me 7 more years of labor, you can have this other Rachel. So he ends up marrying Rachel. They end up...
Wait. Well, hold on.
There's a whole
7 years, marries the wrong sister. So he gives another 7 years?
Oh, yeah, he gives another, a whole time period. Yeah, yeah.
So for over a decade.
Oh, yeah, he's working for this guy for free, basically, trying to pursue Rachel. Okay. So that happens. But then
what happened to Esau? Like he was Esau was chasing his brother.
Well,
down.
he doesn't find him, and then Esau. Well, we're going to find out what Esau is doing in a little bit. So all this time, Esau's building his own family, his own tribe, and all that kind of stuff. And actually, the land named Edom, Edom, is named for. That's where Esau founded his family's Edom. And there's always going to be trouble with the Israelites and the Edomites and the Amorites and the Hittites and the ites. A lot
of ites, yeah.
And so there's a bunch of stuff that happens in that whole deal with Jacob and Leah and Rachel. They end up fleeing. They end up leaving. And Jacob ends up being called to go back home. He's got to go back to the ancestral place. He's got to go back there. Because he's got to lead his family, his tribe, and by this time, he's had lots of kids, and he's got lots of possessions. He left with a lot of goats and all kinds of stuff, and he knows that he's going to have to pass through the land where Esau is, and he's scared. After all these years, he's been telling himself a story. And I think this is probably where this whole thing hits home even more for us, is that we tell ourselves a story that we begin to believe over and over and over again. And Jacob's story is, Esau's out to get me. I remember everything I did. Well, I did, yeah, I would be out to get me too, right? I mean, he's telling himself the story that Esau's waiting to kill him, and he doesn't want to go back, but he knows he has to go back. He's hearing a story from God. Trust the story, God is saying to Jacob, but he's not sure if he can trust that story because he has a different story in his head that he's been playing all these years. And why not? It would be normal. He has no idea what Esau's doing. He has no idea when he meets Esau what's going to happen. All the while, Esau has been telling himself a completely different story. And we're going to see the kind of what happens with these two when these two stories collide with each other. Jacob ends up in this wrestling match with an angel, let's just say. We don't necessarily know for sure. It's some manifestation of God's guiding Jacob back to where he needs to be, because that's what Jacob needs. He needs to wrestle with everything. He needs to wrestle with who he is. He needs to wrestle with what he's done. He needs to wrestle with the story he's telling himself. He needs to wrestle with God. And I tell people a lot, when something happens in their life, go ahead and wrestle. You need to wrestle with God, because God will wrestle with you. God says, I'm here with you. Let's go pick a fight. Let's go fight with God. First of all, God can handle it. And God would appreciate that. I mean, when you're in a relationship with someone and they just ignore you, at least let's talk it out. Let's fight it out even, because then you know that they care, right? If there's no, I don't care. Well, why do I care then? And so they fight it out. And in that fighting, Jacob's hip is put out of place, it's dislocated, and it turns Jacob into something that he never expected. He can't run anymore. Literally, he can't run. But also, it's a figurative thing to go, he stopped running. He's not going to run anymore from anything. And he can't run from Esau. So he goes out and he's going to meet Esau. But here's the crazy part of the story.
Oh, now we're getting to the crazy part? Sorry.
Sorry.
The 14 years of an indentured servant marrying half the family.
So Jacob he's still, even after that wrestling, he still is holding on to a story that Esau's going to kill him. So when he goes out to meet Esau, he brings his whole family. He lines them up front to back. Esau's coming with 400 soldiers, by the way. He hears about that. So he's coming with a bunch of armed, ready to go guys. And he puts his least favorite in front. So he puts his maids up front with their kids. Then he puts Leah back the next in line.
His first wife.
With all their kids. And then Rachel and his favorite son, which we're going to get into this week, Joseph, appears.
Oh, Joseph. Okay.
Joseph, the favorite. And he puts them in the back. Just in case the battle breaks out, they'll kill the maids and their kids first. And then make it to Leah and her kids. And maybe Rachel and Joseph can escape. He still isn't trusting the story. And I think that's so real for all of us. You even, especially if you're going into some kind of reconciliation, you want it, you think it, you've been told this is something that will be helpful, but you're still holding back, right? You're still holding back because you're not sure what the story the other people have been telling themselves all these years because you've been telling yourself the story. Well, here's the story that Esau's been telling himself. Esau has forgotten about it. Esau has forgiven him probably years ago. And we know that because instead of Esau living into the blessing of he's going to use a sword, which typically if you're going to fight somebody with a sword, you would fall on their neck with the sword. He doesn't take out a sword. He kisses Jacob on the neck. He comes out, they embrace, and Esau, the sword wielder, uses his lips on the neck of Jacob, which I don't know about you. If you know of anybody that's ever kissed you on the neck, that's a very intimate reality.
Yep.
I mean, we're not walking around here you're shaking hands and, a hand on the back or a little hug every once in a while. We're not running around. I mean, you don't show up to your band and
I have four brothers never kissed one on the neck. We'll just say that. It's not going to happen. 2 sisters, never going to happen.
No. So it's this
Forehead,
sure.
Forehead, yep.
Yeah. So this unbelievably intimate connection that Esau brings. Esau has forgiven Jacob a long time ago. And Jacob, he was telling himself a different story. Esau was telling himself a different story. Esau was excited to see him. And he's like, hey, who are all these people? And Jacob's like, well, this is my family. And Esau's like, oh, it's amazing. I have a family. He so embraces when he had every right to say, you're done, man. I'm taking all your stuff because you took all my stuff. And before that, Jacob had been sending him gifts. And Esau's like, don't do that. I don't want any more of your stuff. So not only did Esau forgive him for the deceitfulness, Esau forgave him for the theft, let's say, of his inheritance, which is beautiful. It's amazing. And I think about reconciliation that not every time are human beings going to reconcile like that. We're going to see that 2 weeks from now when Joseph is in a place of power and when his brothers come back. It always doesn't turn out that way. And it doesn't always turn out that way in the biblical story either, because it's all about humanity. It's about humans. But what's possible when we trust the story? That's possible. That there's forgiveness and that there's healing and wholeness. And now Jacob can go on his way freed of any of that that's been holding him back. Now, it's interesting, Esau, after they meet, Esau invites Jacob to come hang out with him and his family. And Jacob says, sure, and then he doesn't. So it's just kind of like, and Esau's probably like, okay, typical. I invited him over, he said sure, but he didn't come, okay. But they have been reconciled. And Esau's going to be able to have what he has, and Jacob's going to be able to have what he has.
Well, there's probably a lot going on, because there's as I'm listening to it, I mean, I can see how you could look at that story and preach a plethora of sermons on it, because there's lessons in every corner of it. But I mean, even looking at, there's a term that I've used a lot, especially in regards to video or lighting or audio. It's called myopic. You've ever heard the term myopic before?
I've heard the term, but I would not be able to tell you what it means.
So what the term myopic is, let's say I'm sitting in front of a project, an audio project, and you start listening to all the things and you start sculpting how it should sound and putting it in there. And what happens along that time, your ears start to get trained to that sound.
Yeah.
And so you get used to hearing it, and you tell yourself, this is great, this is wonderful, this is the thing.
Sure.
And then you sleep at night,
it
resets everything, and you get up in the morning and you listen back to what you did, and you're like, this is crap. What was I thinking? Yeah. And I think that can happen a lot of the times too, especially if, one of the things I love to think about back in the day, nobody's talking about clinical anxiety, things that you can have as a human.
Yeah.
And you can do that to yourself in any situation where you're like, I have this relationship with this person.
Yeah.
And one day you tumble down the drain of all this anxiety and crazy stuff. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you get there and you meet the person, and all those things you thought that was going to happen, you're like, man, I got really myopic about what I thought was going to happen because I was living in my head for so long. And really the reality is different. Yeah. And I could see Jacob, still after that moment, after the kiss on the neck, which also would make me be like, okay, what? Yeah. Oh, whoa. Yeah. Oh, I didn't see that coming. Yeah. Then getting invited to come over, still being like, maybe even living in a little bit of shame to a sense of this new reality, because he got comfortable with the story he told himself for 14 years and 2 wives and 7 maids. He got comfortable. So it's so real. Yeah. It's so real.
And I think that for us, I think there's two sides to this, right? So Jacob had to show up, even though he was scared. Esau had to lay his sword down. And wouldn't it felt so good for Esau to just have that sword ready to go? I'm just going to cut him down for all he did. And I think that happens to us in our world too, is we don't like to put our sword down. Right. We've been hurt. People have hurt us, big time. And they stole all our stuff, right? They lied, and I've got a sword, and I'm just not going to lay it down. But it sounds like he laid that sword down many years prior. Long time before, yep. So it changes from you know what? I'm actually excited to see my brother. Yep. And it takes a lot of energy to carry that sword. Oh. It takes a lot of strength, energy to swing it, to think about, just to carry it around with you. You have to hold that emotion and hate for so long. Yeah. And I think it's either one is hard to do, to show up when you're not sure, but also to show up without the sword. And those of us, every single human being has been wronged on the planet. It's just the way it is. Every one of us, somebody's done something to us. And we can go into degrees of this was worse than that or this was worse than that. We all have reasons to wield swords. What is it going to take for us to put that sword down? And we might never see the Jacob. Like the Jacob may never show up. Esau had put his sword down a long time ago. Stopped looking for him because it was good for Esau to do. Never knew that he would ever have this opportunity to reconcile. But when it happened, he was ready to go. But he had to lay that sword down for himself a long time ago, not for Jacob. And that's hard to do. But I think that whole world of forgiveness is we don't always forgive for the benefit of the other. We forgive for the benefit of us so that we don't have to carry around all this stuff. It doesn't mean you forget about it. It doesn't mean that it's not painful. It doesn't mean that, it wasn't hard, especially as you get more time. But I think laying those things down are benefiting us. And then when that opportunity does come, you can you can embrace someone in a way that they didn't expect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The repercussions of using a sword last a lot longer than the repercussions of hugging someone.
Yep.
Like that. So what about you this book that have we gotten there yet?
Well,
I've been staring at it.
Yeah. So we're gonna wrap up Genesis after whatever how many years we've been doing this now. It feels like years. But I tell people the whole reason why we spent all this time in like Genesis 1 through 11 is by the time we get to chapter 11, we get to Abraham, and we get this family weirdness that happens in every family, every group of people. And I'll be talking about this too. It's like God put this promise and this blessing within a family context where all kinds of weird dynamics happen. Not within a group of friends. I mean, God could have called a group of friends together and say, hey, I want you to live this blessing.
Well, you can get rid of a friend. You cannot get rid of a family member.
You can get rid of a friend, yeah. It's much harder to do that. And we're going to see the generational repercussions that come from the trauma that this family is engaged in, especially as we move through the Joseph story. So the next 2 weeks will be the Joseph story. And then we're out of Genesis, but the whole goal is to be able to see ourselves within these people, to see ourselves within the Rachels and the Rebeccas and the Sarahs and the Abrahams and the Jacobs and the Isaacs and the Esau's and all the ones that have been wronged or have lived this life with this family. And the whole point is for us to go, that's us. Okay. They didn't do it perfectly. They made lots of mistakes, but God is still with them. So we're going to pause, and we're going to take 400 years off after, not yet. 400 years is going to come later. But after the story that we get in the next 2 weeks. And then we're going to go to Exodus.
Exodus, okay.
And this is a book.
Oh, the right camera.
I went to the right camera. I'm learning. I can be taught. This is a book, the Exodus you almost passed over. Phenomenal book. It's, again, from David Fohrman, Rabbi David Fohrman. He really, Exodus for me, a lot, especially with a lot of the stories around the plagues and the battle between Moses and Pharaoh always seem like some movie thing that, just like...
It is a very cinematic part of the Bible.
And he breaks it down into the into the context of the day. Who is Pharaoh? What are Pharaoh's motivations? Who are these Israelites? What's Moses' does all this kind of stuff. And it's great. I would recommend this book. So we're not going to get into this for another 2-3 weeks, but if you can get after it now, you can follow along. Of course, we're not going to do the whole thing, but we'll do Exodus through Lent. and then we're going to match up the book of Exodus with Luke, the Gospel of Luke, and we're going to see how these themes continue to live on in Exodus, but also through Jesus in our day and our time. So I'm excited, but this is a great read. I just got the hardcover because I like hardcovers. I'm sure it's out on lots of different stuff, and I just like the name, the Exodus you almost passed over, because it's the Passover.
Oh yeah,
you get that?
You are a sucker for a dad joke.
That's a Bible gangsta joke. I told my wife, I was like,
we don't have enough time to unpack that title.
She was like, why do you get so jacked up about this stuff? I go, I'm a Bible gangsta. Yeah.
But I mean, this is why I like talking with you about all this stuff.
Yep.
There's a passion behind the story.
Yep.
And not just like the stories we always hear, but the other parts of the story, the fact that we get to the poem aspects of the Bible, and there is. I don't want to hear this stuff from someone who doesn't have that amount of passion. You know, I always find more. So I appreciate it. I mean, it's a little cheesy, but I
well, it's us. I think the more we see ourselves in these stories. Mm-hmm. The more these stories actually make a difference.
Well, the more you and the more you don't, the more you got to dig.
Yep.
Because even in this story, I mean, except for smelling like a goat. But it's so easy to find. I have 4 brothers. I do have 4 brothers, and I have one brother that we just don't get along well at all. And I don't think either one of us have kind of laid down our proverbial swords. Yeah. But a lot of this stuff helps me with going but I'm holding a lot every time there's a family function. Yeah. If I could just do that and work more at it. Yeah. So I find myself in these stories, and to be even thinking of Esau, he probably thought about his brother, but he didn't think about his brother in the context that Jacob thought about his brother. No. And how he held that anxiety. Yeah. For more than 14, I mean, I only have I love the number thing, 7 years and 7 years. I clocked that. I'm it always, what's with the odd numbers in the Bible? But the 7 and the 7. And for many, that's my guess would be 17 years, give or take, depending, before he saw his brother.
Yeah, something.
That is a lot of time to hold that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, and people do.
Right.
People hold their stuff for 30, 40, 50 years,
Do you want to be on your deathbed and finally lay down your sword when you have no other time to experience that particular part of your life?
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Well, is that what we got for today?
That's what we got for today.
Oh man.
We went a little into Isaac even a little more. It's kind of squirrels.
Well, and are we revisiting? You said we should, but are we revisiting?
Maybe we can do a
Isaac?
show on Isaac.
I mean, we got time.
We'll see what happens. We're gonna spend the next 2 weeks in Joseph's story, and
the back of the line.
The back of the line.
We're gonna spend some time in the back of the line.
He's a little brat.
Now
he's a little brat. He's the brat of the family.
Well, yeah, he's the favorite. So
and everybody knows it.
The favorite is commonly the brat.
Can you imagine yourself being one of the older boys, knowing that your father is putting you out to be killed before the rest of them? Before the Joseph? I mean, they must be going, really? The firstborn isn't even protected. So
yeah,
I don't know.
not hierarchy, not by how good of a fighter you are, but by how much I like you. That's
puts out his maids and then the other ones.
The maids. I'm right behind the maids. All right. Well, this was great, PD.
I'm the favorite son.
This might have been my actually favorite story so far. That you've brought.
Good.
I connected a lot with it. So. Yeah. thank you for that. For everybody watching, again, if you've enjoyed what you like, please go ahead and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. I did learn some things about Spotify. If you're looking for us on Spotify and you want just the audio while you're driving or whatever you got going on, search Trust the Story in Spotify, and you will find us very easily that way. You'll see the graphic. In fact, he held up the graphic, so you'll be able to reference that. Yep, there it is. It's upside down.
Sorry.
Perfect. You'll be able to find that graphic really easy, and you'll be able to follow us there. Otherwise, y'all have a great week, and I'll see you next week, Petey.
Sounds good, man.
Awesome.
All right. See you later.
Bye.